De los cerros voy para Marcané, llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarí. De los cerros voy para Marcané, llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarí.
You'll see my work. You don't have a light back here, right?
That's what I was saying.
Please make sure to mute yourself. Thank you.
Cuando Juanita y Chan Chan en el mar servían arena, como sacudía el jibe, a Chan Chan le daba pena. Limpia el camino de paz, que yo me quiero sentar en aquel tronco que veo y así no puedo llegar. Estos cerros voy para Marcané, llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarí. Estos cerros voy para Marcané, llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarí. Estos cerros voy para Marcané, llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarí.
No.
Is this good?
Yeah.
Wonderful to see everyone.
Estos cerros voy para Marcané, llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarí. Estos cerros voy para Marcané, llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarí. Estos cerros voy para Marcané, llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarí.
Welcome, everyone.
Estamos aquí.
We want to see that our students are logging on. Please make sure for the Bronx Senior Photo League, mute yourselves for right now. We're going to begin our presentation. I want to thank everyone for joining us today here virtually. So we're glad to be able to see everyone virtually today. So we're going to want a big reminder that our exhibition is on the BronxSeniorPhotoLeague.org website. That is our virtual exhibition this year. You can catch and check out all of our students' work. And also you can catch us on Instagram at Bronx Senior Photo League. So I want to thank everyone. Again, I want to do a big welcome to everyone who has joined us tonight. I would like to say to everyone, good evening, and welcome to the Bronx Senior Photo League's virtual year-end presentation. My name is Raina M. Santos, and I am the BSPL coordinator, and I will be your moderator for this event. Tonight is a very special night, making the first BSPL virtual year-end presentation we have ever done. This is a first for our students. So we're going to deal with whatever happens, remembering that our goal is to have fun and for our students to show off their amazing work. The Bronx Senior Photo League is a free documentary photography program for older adults in the Bronx. The program began in 2017, and in this short time, we have taught at 3 different senior centers. The class is called Photographing My Life, where students learn to see their everyday lives as important enough to document. Beginning in the fall of 2020, students between the ages of 61 through 81 from the Borinquen Court Mitchell Senior Center and Kips Bay Castle Hill Senior Center attended weekly virtual classes to learn the art of digital photography. This year's exhibition reveals the intimate lives of older adults in a COVID-19 world. The pandemic exposed how older adults were not only vulnerable to illness, but also in danger of becoming invisible. The work in this exhibition reflects their resistance to a documentation of how they coped with their heightened fear and isolation through the creative outlet of photography. Their resilience demonstrated that this generation, often forgotten and marginalized, can continue to contribute art under the most trying circumstances. This work is a rarely seen record of seniors' perspectives on everyday life during a time of historic crisis where they themselves are at greatest risk. This year, their work even garnered national attention through a feature in the New York Times. So I'm going to explain to you a little bit of how this virtual presentation is going to work. We are streaming right now live on YouTube, and it's going to be recorded for those of our family and friends that were not able to join us today, so they're able to see it. We're going to begin with a short interview with renowned photographer Eugene Richards, and then we're going to be looking at the work created by Borinquen Court Mitchell Senior Center and Kips Bay Castle Hill Senior Center. So now I am going to ask our students to please turn off their cameras for our interview portion of our presentation. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. And Eugene, keep your camera on, please.
Good point. I like to hide, actually.
Well, you know, it's okay. You can point the camera a little
We got
away.
G here, so that helps.
That's the best support you could ever have.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna begin tonight by introducing our incredible special guest. Eugene Richards is an award-winning photographer and filmmaker and writer. He has over 16 books published, including the critically acclaimed Below the Line, Living Poor in America, where he documented the devastation of poverty in the US, and The Knife and Gun Club, where he chronicled real-life dramas of an inner-city emergency room. He has been a member of Magnum Photos. He has also been awarded the Guggenheim Fellowship, the W. Eugene Smith Memorial Award, the International Center of Photography Infinity Award, and many others. His work is in the collections of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Pompidou, the Museum of the City of New York, the Smithsonian, ICP, and many, many others. Tonight, we are honored to have Eugene Richards join us today. So Eugene, thank you so much for being here. We are so thrilled to have you. And I just want to say what a privilege it is to have you here. And I wanted to share with our audience that you, being in support of the BSPL, you and your wife donated books for the Mitchell Senior Center students. So I want to really thank you for that and how much they treasured those books. So you have led such an incredible, distinguished career. Let's begin with a question that I think all of our students have, which is, why did you become a photographer? What drove you to this unorthodox career?
Well, I got to begin with where I came from if I'm going to describe that.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a kind of supportive family. We grew up in Boston, Roxbury area, kind of inner city area. My dad was a shipyard worker. My mom was a house cleaner. They both came out of, I got to say, it took me a while, as you know, when you're young, you don't pay much attention to your parents' lives. But I came out later to learn that they came out of the most abject poverty, both of them. My mom was actually sexually abused. We found out before I lost her, not earlier than that. But it was my mom who actually got me into photography because she asked me when I was 15, 16 years old, what I wanted for a birthday present. And out of her money, she, from cleaning houses, she bought me a camera. And that summer I had a job, which was painting barrels, my summer job out in the woods. And I would run into the woods with my camera and take pictures of the trees and whatever it is. And I thought this was great because it was a totally different way of looking at life. My parents, to be honest with it, my parents didn't get along very well. So I came out of like a lot of us, a tumultuous home. And suddenly the camera provided me an escape. I went on to go to college, a 5-year college. I was the first one in my family to go to college. My father dropped out of school when he was 12, to a 5-year school. And then I was working as a copy boy at a newspaper, and I saw the photographers were treated kind of differently. They were kind of the outlaws, I did a little bit of photography in college yearbooks. And then what happened is I got involved in the anti-war movement against the Vietnam War, which is the biggest thing of our lives back then. Two things, the major things of our lives, of my life, I should say, back then, was the anti-war movement and Dr. King. Because on one hand, there was protesting the Vietnam War. On the other hand, there was a whole movement coming up of equality and moving in this country. And he was so inspirational. And I think he was the guy who changed, it sounds like guy, sorry, the saint, whatever he was in his own way, who changed my life because I thought I was going to prison. I ended up studying photography for a little while, thinking I was going to be going away. And then I went to join Vista, which is a kind of Volunteers in Service for America, which is you become a social worker. They sent me down to Arkansas. And that was the biggest thing that happened in my life. I was down there. I worked as a social worker for about 1.5 years. And then basically they kicked me out of Vista for political activity. And then a few of us started a newspaper. The newspaper was a community newspaper. Down there, you got to understand, this was the true, at that time, old South. It was just post-segregation. We reported on communities. We reported on the Ku Klux Klan resurgence at that time, all kinds of issues like that. But the other thing that happened to me, which was the most, I think, for the students here, is I started meeting people in my social worker status, which is basically the people I worked with as a social worker were the sharecroppers. And these were people who were literally hungry. I mean, truly hungry people. We raised money, brought food down, etc. But that was the beginning of my talking to people about their lives, because the life was very different. I could complain about my life. I had no complaints at all. People were destitute, but also incredibly open to my entering their life. And so I learned my photography with them. I learned how to enter people's lives. I learned what the limits are. I learned how to ask permission. I learned to read people who weren't comfortable with photography. Everything was there for me, was in that learning period. And that was my beginning.
What an incredible beginning. And it's such a beautiful story. You begin with a family member, your precious mom, being able to fulfill this dream that you have by being able to introduce photography to you with that. And there's something to be said about how loved ones and friends can really encourage someone to follow their dreams or their artistic pursuits. I think that's a beautiful thing to talk about. Eugene, could you tell us a little bit about how has your work changed as you have aged? do you see the world now? How do you see the world now as an older photographer?
God, I think, well, we're in an age right now where all of us are confused. So I can't even easily answer that question. There's been years that I've been incredibly hopeful. And I think the past president took a lot of that hope out of me. And I saw a resurgence, a terrible resurgence of the kind of things that I really, maybe it was naive that back in the, 60s, 70s, 80s, I saw, the problems emerging in the drug world in the 90s, how a lot of our problems weren't going away. But it wasn't until most recently that I saw some of the things that I thought we were beating away, the biases, the attitudes about women, the attitudes about gender, that we had made great inroads in. And now I saw them coming back in front of us again. So to be honest, I'm feeling kind of defeated. And so when I get defeated, poor Janine could tell you, I get angry. And when you get angry, you go act, the only thing you can do as a creative person is go apply yourself again. So at that time, that's where the book came from about the South. I said, I've got to go back and see how life is there after all these years. And that what brought me back to Arkansas in the last 2 years again. But that's the only thing you could do, is roll with the punches. And I agree with everybody. Your assignment is on COVID, for example. I had the virus actually early on in March. And it was pretty murderous. I ended up not compared to other people, by the way. So I could hear the ambulances going by. I have no illusion because I could breathe. The only thing I did is I got such a cough, I fractured a rib, and I knew I had to get up. And I ended up, the only place I could go with Janine, I followed Janine to this Greenwood Cemetery, which is not far from our house. And I began to photograph there because it's what I could do. It wasn't what I would probably want to do. Our city is so heavy with problems today. I don't have to tell anybody the violences, the police, the domestic violences that are emerging, the mistreatment of children, the sex offenders, that I want to be out there again. I'm 77, so I'm not going to get any assignments like that. There is definitely, in all the isms, ageism is probably at the bottom of the list for anybody. It's, because we, the racism, the sexism, the genderism, and then there's the ageism, but it's real. And you reach a certain point where people don't pay attention to you anymore. They don't think you can do the job. We know that you can do the job. All of you know that you can do the job. You just have to do it a little differently. I'm not going to be running the way I used to be, but I can still do the job.
Yeah, well, let me ask you a little bit. I mean, you bring up the issue of ageism, and I definitely, and I think my students would agree, it actually comes up in our classes all the time at what people expect or actually don't expect from older adults, especially in trying to create art. But tell me, do you feel as an older photographer, how do people treat you? Do they treat you with more respect or less respect?
This is my experience. Now, not everyone's. What happens to you, it's different. I'm a social photographer, you call it, not an art photographer. If I was considered an art photographer, you may be esteemed in your older age, okay? If you're a social photography right now, is on a downward trajectory in society. It's not as vital as it used to be years ago. So that what happens to myself, what's happening to me, is akin to what's happened to a lot of people. If anybody knows the great photographer of child poverty, Lewis Hine, if you look him up, Lewis Hine, I'm not going to happen like he did, but he died abjectly alone because he was out of fashion. His work was out of fashion, even though everybody copies it, even to this day, then it was out of fashion. Social photography right now is very much out of fashion, which is ironic because never has their problems been so great. But people aren't going to support it. All you have to do is look at the magazines and you'll see that there's very little room, for example, of going into people's lives the way they used to be and really examining them. There's portraiture, which is wonderful because you've got some great portraitists in your group. So I'm not, but there's all kinds of ways of looking at the world. And looking at things from social photographer's point of view is slipping away. Is slipping away. Yeah.
I think that's coming from someone as distinguished as you, this, kind of cautionary tale of, having to really watch, something. And, even looking at these type of classes, that we have here at for older adults, because they're based on documentary photography, being able to photograph themselves and their world and, and the community, and how important that is. You brought up, the pandemic, and I wanted to ask you, you're known for capturing the aftermath of tragedies, mental health, 9/11, the devastation of cancer. In the past year, we have all had to live through COVID. And how do you think the tragic side of COVID has been portrayed? Has it been captured properly, do you think? And did you capture anything while you were not well? Did you whip out your
No, I
camera?
didn't turn the camera on myself. I'm not very good at that. And when I do, it's too narrow. I think that the COVID thing, I'm always talking about it, Janine and are always discussing it. And it's affecting us, and it's going to affect us in ways that we never could imagine. First off, we go for the tragedy of losing 600,000 people. That's astonishing. And Greenwood Cemetery, which is a cemetery of miles and miles in diameter, there are 400,000 people in that cemetery. The idea that there's 600,000 people gone is staggering. That's the beginning. But what's always happening now, as we know, is the things that are more vital is the separatists that we're experiencing. We became very isolated from each other. And now I think we're having a hard time coming back, for one thing. That's one thing that I'm feeling. I'm feeling it myself. I think that the biggest thing, the class and money gap has grown exponentially. We know that now that, how do you say it without sounding so crass, but the wealthy have grown enormously more wealthy. And while the people, the middle class and the poorer people are just hanging on, we have this little, we know that the salaries have barely come up. We know, especially in New York, I mean, it's because of the real estate boom. Everything's more expensive, everything. And yet no one is making any more money. We're making less and less and less. So the ramifications of COVID are enormous. And they made this great tragedy into something that I feel it's going to be years for us to recover from. And we're not really looking at how a lot of us are being taken advantage of in a massive way.
No, I agree with you very much. I think it was so plain with our students, just even basic access to Wi-Fi, what a challenge it was for a lot of our student population. So it's definitely something that is going to be with us forever. And you can see last year's COVID work to this year's COVID work is very different by our students. This level of evolution of having to deal with this pandemic on an everyday basis. Right now, we have two students, Eugene, that are interested in asking you questions. I'm going to ask Maria Michelle, if you can turn on your camera, please. And if you can unmute yourself. Maria Michelle is from Mitchell Senior Center, and she has a question for you.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jean. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to stay here. Thank you for your experience. It's really nice time spent with you. I have a question. I am very interested in the self-portrait techniques and capturing the agent's human body. I love that. So, what kind of advice do you give me to learn more how the photographer that? do you have any recommendation for photographers? I can, I call a story.
Well, I saw your pictures, by the way. I looked at them, and that initial portrait, I think that Reiner called it a nude portrait, which it really isn't in some ways. It happens to be a woman without clothes. Is spectacular.
Mhm.
It's just beautiful, and the reason it's beautiful is it's not self-conscious in any way. It feels like, you know, this sounds like an invasion, that I was there taking a photograph of you,
Mm.
that it wasn't an outsider. It's a very intimate kind of portrait. I think if I had any advice, I could give you, whoops, we lost the screen. If I could give you any advice, it would be hard advice. It would be harsh advice. Whenever in my life, and there's been only a few times, to be honest, where I've taken pictures where I said, shit, I got it. Pardon my vulgarity. Man, that's it. I did exactly what I wanted to do. Then I take that photograph and I put it there. And I use that as my example for what has to come next. So that I did it once, I can do it again. And what you have to do as a creative person is set your own standard of what, and you look at why does that picture work so well. The fact that you're working with your own body, there are so many ways you can go. I jotted down a couple of names of people. There's a man named John Copeland. He was if you know his work, he photographed himself at an older age, and it's Coplans. And I'll give you the Reiner can tell you, what? I'm sorry, Copeland with a D. Yeah. And he photographed his aging body, and sometimes in a very dramatic way. And he inspired a whole generation of people copying him. A guy named Arnold Meneken is another person who photographs his younger body. There is a woman now who doesn't photograph quite the same way you do, but there's a woman who was in my class when I was in Maine named Patricia Leigh Dorsey. And Patricia is in a wheelchair. And she did these books of all the variety of experiences she's had in life being in a wheelchair. So there are people who are going the way you are. In fact, when I lost my first wife, Dorothea, to cancer, and she wasn't a photographer, she was a writer. But in a sense, I became her stand-in photographer. And I worked with her to make the photos she wanted to make. Matter of fact, she wanted, sort of like yourself, she wanted unvarnished truth in her pictures. So I have pictures of her that I wouldn't have taken because they show her breast scars and they show, etc. But she said she wanted to share this with other women. She didn't want any gauzy coverings. So Dorothea, if you want to see a book by Dorothea Reiner, we can get you a copy and you'll see her view of being older. The other thing is when Dorothea working on this book together, we visited many women themselves who are both ill and aging. And all of them, despite what people think, all of them said, photograph me.
Wow, beautiful.
Because they said, if you don't do it, it's like you, right? If you don't do it, no one's going to care. If you don't do it, no one's going to know how beautiful you are if you didn't show that picture, right? I mean, I see you now, but it's beautiful. So you have to do the work. You could extend it in many ways to working with other women. They would all be very proud to share. I think then you have to get the technique of entering people's lives without intruding. You have to be very careful when you photograph people's privacy, but it can be done and people will share other things. So those are the people I think about. And there's been women forever who have done this. There's a woman in Boston who's passed away recently, beautiful woman named Melissa Shook, but she became renowned for the fact that she just let her body show with all of its flaws. And Janine pointed out, there's a woman named Jen Davis. And Jen Davis, if you know her, you probably do, photographs her battle with weight, obesity. And of course, she's a beautiful woman, but she's got a constant battle with her weight. So she photographed herself honestly, but beautifully, showing her body as a heavy person. So there's some great role models for you. But that was very wonderful to see your picture.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Eugene. And really, I understand everything. Thank you for your concern. I'm feeling better now. More, me encantaría como estar más cerca de ese género.
But you should be very confident moving ahead. And maybe what you should do is, for a while, concentrate on yourself, not even on your environment, but make 25 or 30 or 40 pictures of yourself in the way that you did at the beginning, and try it and see what happens. Yeah.
Yes, because Rina say in the class is about you. When she say it's about you, this class is about you. I think, oh, it's about me. Maybe I can to make something different.
Yes, well, you could.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Maria Michelle, for that. She was very excited to speak with you, Eugene. Now, our second and final question we have from Virgilio. Virgilio, if you could please turn on your camera and unmute yourself, and feel free to ask your question.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for the collection of books that you gave us. I got rid of my pornography books to make room for yours.
And I don't know what to say to that, but go. I'll let you go on that.
I have a question, and I'm trying to show emotion in my photos.
Right.
How do you show emotions in your photos? How do you evoke emotions, responses through your pictures?
Well, I saw your photographs. I looked at yours. And just like I looked at Maria's, and I thought that her picture, the first one, was an emotional photograph. I looked at yours, and I saw a combination of approaches. Okay, I saw pictures that I thought were full of emotion. I thought the one of you at the back looking out the window was an emotional picture. I thought the photograph of you reflected in a little puddle of water was an emotional picture. Now, what makes them emotional for me is, this is me, I think photography, wonderful photography, is not about facts. It's not about the facts of things, the reality of things. It's about the feelings that you have, you know, and if you can hold it to that. So that's why I looked through your photographs, and I saw some of the photographs. There was a picture of you in the room watching television. And to me, that seemed like a factual picture, because that's you wrote about it. That's how you lived your life. Curiously, right next to it was a photograph that showed you sitting there, probably in your underwear, looking at TV, your bare legs. And I could connect with that, because I could connect with you, because I sit around all the time like we all do, lounging, looking at TV and my underpants. It had an emotional quotient. So that's the first thing, I think, is to separate the information, because informational photographs aren't terribly interesting. They don't drag you in. You look at them for a while. You need them. You need them if you're a news photographer. You need them, you know, to understand history. But when you come down to, you know, emotional, personal history, then you have to get into, like you said, the emotion. How do you do it? It's very hard for me to say how I can elicit it from you, except for maybe you to study your own work again. In my case, how I guess when maybe I'm like a lot of you. I'm fundamentally kind of an emotional person. I'm very calm, but I don't take you know, life very lightly. You know, I always pick on myself for maybe growing up too Irish, because I'm, you know, and rather than being drinking myself to death, I, express myself in some ways, these deep feelings I have. So I put myself in situations where I'm sharing the lives of other people, and I wait until they reveal themselves. I'm not looking for something good, bad, or whatever, but I'm waiting for that moment of revelation. And I think that that's what it is. So it's very hard to describe how you put emotion in pictures, except they're revelatory moments. They're things that very often are so simple, other people wouldn't recognize them. I mean, you look at the picture of you looking out the window, and you could sense a kind of longing, or maybe it was a picture of your isolation during the COVID period, or I looking at that picture, I can't tell you the exact moment of history that you were living, but I know that there was a sense of longing, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely. I know that. I couldn't tell, you could be longing for a lost loved one, you could be longing to be outside, you could be lonely, but I knew that. And then the picture in the body of water is another picture of isolation. Even the color of it, we were talking about the fact that the form is blue. It's one of the things about being digital photography is it's so easy sometimes that some of us don't look at color in the proper way. And color is emotional, as you know. I mean, of all, there's nationalities, we know that in life, cultural nationalities, the color is everything. I mean, we used to travel a little bit in Africa. The thing that was so astounding in Africa is no matter how poor people were, and they were poorest that I've ever met in my life, they wore bright colors because they lifted themselves up with the bright colors. So that's another way to show emotion in your pictures is using color. How do you make, if we had time in a class, I mean, you probably do with Reiner, because I understand you were discussing the use of shadows and the use of edges. All these things, the way you use a camera, there's ways of studying as a photographer, how you use a camera, realizing, for example, this is very simple-minded. We're looking at ourselves, you and I right now, you're right in the center of my picture, right? So there's a kind of balance here, right? By the looking at you, you're very balanced. If I move you over and it becomes a little unbalanced. If you're off to the side, right away, that's an emotional change. Everything every camera use is an emotional change. And so you might want to do that. It's how to study framing of your camera, but not framing as a skill, but framing as an emotional tool. Because, if I cut your face in half, it's very upsetting because we don't exist that way. It's only half of you. So that makes things even more upsetting. When I see part of your body, even with Maria's, picture, you only see part of her. That itself, by its isolation, it had an emotional quality. You didn't see the whole her. So how do you study the camera? I think, I keep telling myself I should do a book about camera use, because people go, but you look at, every other artist, you look at dancers, right? You look at dancers, they spend years and years and years on technique. We photographers think it comes instantly, but it can come by study. So you might do that. You might take a day or two and photograph the same thing over and over again, moving the camera a little bit each time. And when you look at your resulting pictures, you'll find, strangely, that they mean different things. You might take a picture of yourself looking at you now, and in the background, it's like right now, you look at the picture of Janine and I, right? Okay, we're both together. So we have a relationship. So there's a mystery here. Who is this woman behind me? Could be an emotional moment. I remove her and the picture is totally different. It's just this old guy sitting here, and it's much more uninteresting. So a lot of it's about inclusion and what you take in and take out. All of those things have emotions attached to them. So I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but it's studying.
No, you certainly have.
Well, I wish I could go on too much and ruin your whole night. So, so thank you for the question.
No, the exact opposite, Eugene, the exact opposite. But so I want to thank you, Eugene, so much for being with us today and for showing so much support for you and Janine, supporting the Bronx Senior Photo League in the way that that you have. It means so much to all of us. And today sharing, you know, your expertise and your wisdom with us is so meaningful. So thank you so much for being with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you all for having me, really, really. Okay.
No, it's magnificent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, now we are going to move towards introducing the students' work at Mitchell Senior Center. And I am going to say a little bit about the center, and then our TA will say a few words herself. I have taught at Mitchell Senior Center for 4 years, but this year has been like no other. One thing the pandemic taught us is that older adults can adapt to change. This year, due to the pandemic, we followed physical distancing guidelines and held our classes 100% online. Our students learned how to use computers, tablets, iPads, and cell phones to attend class. Not only did they tackle the intricacies of the virtual world, but they also immersed themselves in learning how to use a brand new camera donated by Fujifilm. They did this all on screen. I was in awe of their bravery and perseverance to go against the norm of assuming that older adults can't learn new things. Like our student Mildred said, it's not that we don't want to learn, it's that no one shows us. This year, our students created and photographed COVID-19 tab capsules and documented their own vaccination journeys. And that's a separate page on the exhibition that you can check out. We also had a magnificent thing happen, which was the Bronx Senior Photo League being featured in the New York Times. Students were asked to participate in a self-portrait assignment where they explored identity and their intimate worlds. Week after week, I became more and more excited by the work I saw my students create. They pushed themselves to make honest and intimate portraits of how they saw themselves as artists. For 4 years, we have been fighting for this type of work to be taken seriously artistically. And it can't be more official than being in the New York Times. So this is a magnificent year for us. This feature is life-changing for these students from the South Bronx. And this is directly to my students. I'm incredibly proud of you and your dedication to honing and perfecting your artistic eye and technique. Each image in this show is a badge of courage for all of your hard work. I want you to know you made me a better teacher, and it is my honor sharing this experience with you this year. So thank you very much. I want to ask Gisela, our TA, Gisela Dionio, to please turn on her camera. She has a few words for Mitchell Senior Center.
First, I just want to say that I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'm beyond proud of all of the BSPL students who worked very hard. This year was a very special year with all of us being able to connect through Zoom, and I think you can definitely see through the work how much everyone pushed themselves and really committed to sharing their world through photography. I can easily say that what our students have created is some of the most beautiful work that I have ever seen. And it's my hope that others will have a greater awareness of the importance we need to place on older adults, especially when it comes to resources such as technology, the internet, and the arts. I think that if anything, this class is proof that older adults don't just want to continue learning, but are asking to. And programs like the BSPL are just a small part in making that happen.
Thank you so much, Gisela. So now John is going to begin to share, to show the students' work. And we will begin with Virgilio Carballo. Virgilio, could you please turn on your camera and unmute yourself? And once your images are on screen, you may begin.
Okay, this first image, I took this first self-portrait in 1962 in a hotel room in Baltimore, Maryland. I caught a foul ball at a baseball game and decided to take a photo of myself contemplating my prize, which unfortunately did not come out in the photo. Instead, you see just me looking down at the ball in my hands. I don't remember how I set up this photo, if I had a timer or a tripod, but I do know how much has changed in 59 years since that photo was taken. Since the selfie back in 1962, I've become aware of the beauty in the world which I took for granted all these years. I like to photograph people, nature, sunsets, shadows created by celestial bodies and man-made structures. The thing I like most about photography is the ability to stop time. I prefer to take pictures of people in their natural habitat, going about their business because of the purity in the nature of the task. I find these images more interesting to look back on after many years have passed. Photography has taught me to be patient and to become cognizant of the beauty in the mundane. COVID-19 has forced us all to stop and being a real drag. I've occupied most of my time rearranging things in my apartment, listening to music, catching up with friends, and taking photographs, of course. Taking photos has been my escape to a happier, simpler time. I'm an introverted extrovert, and photography has helped me cope with the distance and detachment. And this is my, the one going down is my door, my front door, and with the signs of what to do. So my day will be arranged. And the one in the shadow, I had never taken a photo like that in my life. And it just so happens that I saw my shadow in the puddle, and I took the photo.
Thank you so much, Virgilio. Thank you so much for reading your artist statement and telling us about some of your images. Next, we are going to welcome Elena Farciet. Elena, if you can please turn on your camera. Virgilio, if you can mute yourself, Virgilio, and turn your camera off. Elena, if you can turn your camera on and unmute yourself. Elena, are you there?
Yes, hi everyone.
Elena, beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I am an optimist and believer in the power of the karma, always reminding gratefully for everything I have. This is values have guided me through my journey as a Mexican immigrant living in the United States. I have been taking photography classes for the past 2 years. I became interested in taking this is class through A-frame. I love to take photos and learn about the techniques and the features that the camera has. Photography gives me the opportunity to share the most important and special moments in life with family, friends, and others. The proudest moment in photography for me was when one of my photos was featured in the New York Times early this year. I was honored that they felt my work was good enough to in the paper. I am very proud when I taking photos, proud of learning about the new camera, and of being a student who is able to take fantastic photos. By taking this class, I feel more confident.
Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you very much. Now we are going to, Elena, if you can turn your camera off and mute yourself. Now we're going to see the work of Teresa Guzman, and the artist statement will be read by Gisela, our teaching assistant.
Okay, so Teresa Guzman. Coming to the United States was like entering an entirely new world. The language, the environment, everything was so different. At first, my family and I moved fairly often until we finally settled in the South Bronx. I have been living in the same apartment for 33 years now, and I'm really proud of the roots I have in this community and the life my family has built. I have a passion for photography and love capturing the moment as it unfolds in front of me. It must run in the family. My father was a lithograph photographer and worked at a very famous magazine in Ecuador. He's been my inspiration. I love to take pictures of my family and friends, my grandkids, and the places I travel. It allows me to capture a beautiful moment and be able to repeat those memories and images again and again. I enrolled in my first photography class 2 years ago. I thought it would be difficult, but I love learning, and it has actually been a very rewarding experience. I've learned about techniques and vocabulary, and everything from self-timers and choosing camera angles to photo composition. This year, I photographed more of myself in intimate places. I am most proud of the photo I took when I was in my bedroom, because sometimes people don't want to see another person's feet, but I don't care what they say. I took this photo in privacy with not too much light. So now I'm not afraid to take a picture of my feet, of my shoes. I'm extremely grateful to my teachers in the program, Ms. Santos and Ms. Dionio. I've really been able to count on them and on the program, especially this year during COVID-19, when I learned so much more about taking pictures.
Thank you so much, Gisela. Thank you very much. Next, we are going to have Lydia Maria Isaac de Moto. And Lydia is here today, if you can turn on your camera. But the actual statement will be read by Maria Esteves, who is our volunteer translator. She will be reading for Lydia.
Hi guys, can everyone hear me? Hola.
En inglés. Hola.
Yo voy a leer el statement suyo en inglés.
Ajá.
Okay.
¿Está bien, Lydia, o usted lo quería leer en inglés?
Bueno, a ver si... Ajá. Voy a ver.
Ok,
si
gracias. Perfecto.
In 1994, my family left the Dominican Republic for New York City. Now, I spend my time participating in photography with the Bronx Senior Photo League and doting on my grandchildren. I have always been interested in the arts. This year, I learned to better understand my camera and make better photos. Photography has a lot of power and even richer history. I like to capture buildings, landscapes, flowers, animals, people, and objects because they have a deep meaning to me. This pandemic made me see life in a different way. And it's survivable. Survivable. I am more optimistic and I am thankful to God for giving me the opportunity to be alive, to be patient, healthy, and to keep learning every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Lydia. Thank you
you.
so much.
Good job.
Beautiful, beautiful, Lydia. So now, if everyone can mute themselves who is not muted, I'm going to ask for Maria Auxiliadora Mesa Gutierrez to please turn on her camera and unmute herself.
Good afternoon. I started to explore photography about 2.5 years ago. Also, I have always been interested in it. I was born in Nicaragua, but now I live in Manhattan. Having a very active social life, I like to take my camera everywhere. I photograph parties, social events, family gatherings, and the people that attend them. I also like to capture nature and architecture with interesting structure and designs. Using the techniques and knowledge I learned this year, my photography improved. I especially learned the importance of having a purpose before taking a photo. When my BSPL classmate and friend Lydia sat in this beautiful cascading light, I saw it was a perfect moment to document her first vaccination shot. This year, I immersed myself in self-portraiture and still life. I am extremely grateful and happy to have been able to continue this wonderful and stimulating class. When I was young, I dreamed about having my own camera to take photos. I enjoy looking at the photos after being developed. When my son was born, I got the chance to buy a Kodak camera and to take my own photos. Nowadays, with more knowledge about the subject, I enjoy photography even more. Senelog, BSPL, and Borinquen Mitchell Senior Center. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you. And now I'm going to invite Maria A. Michel to please turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
Again, in my compose, I I have I have loved photography since I was very young. I always dreamed about being able to go to a school to photography and own a really good camera, but that I was impossible when I was growing up. I still attended every exhibition I could. Living in the South Bronx, I would often walk by the Bronx Documentary Center and stop to look at everything they were doing. I wanted to go in and ask them all about their work, but I never had the courage to. Then I found out about the classes at Borinquen Mitchell Senior Center, and I signed up. I was available to see that childhood dreams become a reality. I love taking pictures that speak for me and my person vision. My photos talk about time, happiness, sadness, and everything that I can feel, touch, and dream. I've learned more about myself with photo techniques that are so important for taking good pictures. How to compose with angles, shadows, reflections, symmetry, and emotion. All of these aspects make me love photography even more. And even though I haven't done it for too long, I already feel capable of doing what I always dream about, to take good pictures. Lastly, I found thing I never imagined, like street photography, portraits, and capturing programs straight from the TV. Oh my goodness, that was amazing for me. So now I'm thinking about my photographers. I learned a lot. I had good opinion about these classes. Thank you, Miss Rina, Miss Giselle, Bronx Documentary Center, and Borinquen Core Mitchell Senior Center. I'm so happy for that, and I have nice opinion. Pero lo pienso decir en español. Yo siento que todos los Estados Unidos, en especial el estado de Nueva York, deberían darle mucha importancia a estas clases de fotografía para personas envejecientes. Realmente nos saca de la soledad. Esta clase es la única que nos saca de la soledad y también nos permite vernos a nosotras mismas, nos brinda salud y también nos da la esperanza de que no estamos solas. Nos permite también ver el mundo exterior de una manera diferente. Yo creo que todos los seniors del mundo deberían tener una cámara en la mano, porque cuando tienen una cámara en la mano y aprenden un poco de técnica, también pueden con esa cámara pensar que sus manos están libres de un walker, sus manos están libres de un bastón y sus emociones interiores, esas emociones que le causan tristeza, desaparecen. Porque cuando una abuelita le toma la fotografía a ella misma, a una nieta o a un nieto, eso le da mucha felicidad. Y más cuando ya uno puede como una persona muy adulta, pretender de enseñar a su familia y a su comunidad que uno pudo tomar una buena fotografía. Yo siento que todas las clases para nosotras son muy buenas, como la danza, como la zumba, la nutrición y muchas clases más que recibimos, pero no hay ninguna que se parezca, que haga más efecto que las clases de fotografía. Realmente yo exhorto a la comunidad que nos está apoyando en este sentimiento, que le dé mucha importancia a todos los senior centers del estado de Nueva York, porque los seniors se pueden parar de la silla de rueda y pueden llegar siempre que el caso lo amerite y pueden llegar a mover sus brazos para tomar una buena fotografía y no necesariamente hay que salir. Nos enseñaron a tomar fotografía desde nuestra ventana, a tomar fotografía desde nuestros televisores, a tomar la fotografía de los rincones de la casa, de los cuadros de la casa, cosa que nunca iba a pasar por la mente. Y yo siento que eso entretiene bastante al senior y también le da salud. Creo que este es un comentario que se debe tomar en cuenta, puesto que yo como maestra y como veo a mis compañeras, no tan solo yo, porque yo he aprendido bastante y creo que necesito un poco más. Por eso le hice la pregunta a Mr. Eugene y me sirvió bastante para comenzar a investigar más sobre ese tópico. Pero siento que todas mis amigas están realmente felices con esta clase y a ninguna nos ha pasado que ya es tiempo de coger el worker. porque tenemos las piernas fuertes para caminar a los parques, a los ríos, afuera en la calle, nuestras habitaciones en la casa, con una cámara tomar la fotografía. Ojalá todas pudiéramos tener una cámara buena que nos diera esa ilusión de seguir adelante y vernos más saludables y más felices al mismo tiempo. Muchísimas gracias a todos y en especial a Rina y a Gisela.
Thank you so much, Maria, for a beautiful comment that you wanted to share with us about how important this photography class has been for you and what you have witnessed with your friends in the class. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. Now we're going to have Ninfa. Ninfa, if you can please turn on your camera and unmute yourself to read your statement.
Okay, I can read the statement, but yeah, the camera it doesn't work. I don't know.
Nope,
But I
don't
can read it.
Thank you. That's okay.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna read it. Okay, you can turn on the camera, no? No. Okay, as a photographer, I am deeply. Can you hear me?
We can hear you,
Hello?
Ninfa. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna read it. As a photographer, I am a deeply sentimental. My kids and my family are everything to me. Following my teacher advice, this year I practiced taking my camera everywhere. I documented joyous occasions like the wedding parties where people have been able to finally gather after a year of COVID-19 restrictions. This year, I also learned about myself by experimenting with self-portrait. I even bought a self-stick to help me take this photographer of myself with the help of new photo techniques, such as different angles, backgrounds, and foregrounds. My photography improved. I have such wonderful memories of doing photography because it is become a part of mine and my family's lives. Before I used to take pictures just for memories and nothing else. They say if you do something, you should do it with passion. Don't just do it. And now I take pictures with passion. Like Mr. Yuji was saying that you have to add, sentimental emotions. Well, I'm adding passion. Yeah, hello?
Thank you so much, Ninfa. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. You did a beautiful job. Next, we are going to look at the work of Adela Paredes, and I will be reading her artist statement. Ninfa, if you can now mute yourself again, thank you.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I am.
My favorite aspect of photography is the feeling and mood behind the images. This year, we got new cameras and learned advanced functions that gave me more control in my picture making. This was challenging, but I saw my photography improve. My cousin Jessie, who has a sales website, even used one of my photos as advertising. One of my most successful photos this year was of my prayer corner. I have always loved small objects. The table is full of small gifts given to me by my friends for my journey from Ecuador to the US in 2001. Photos like this one have helped me to be more mindful and present. I work as a home care attendant, and my favorite part of the day is when I walk to and from work through Joyce Kilmer Park. I love to sit on the wooden bench and take photos of the beautiful greenery around me. As I have seen my photographic skills improve, I am thankful to God, my teachers, and my classmates for being an amazing team that have helped me with my personal goals. Ninfa, could you please mute yourself? Thank you. So now we are going to look at the work of Maxima. Oh, never mind. I jumped. So sorry. Now we're going to look at the work of Maxima Valerio. And the statement is going to be read by Maria Esteves. Ninfa, you're still, there you go. Thank you.
Oh,
You have to mute yourself, Ninfa. Thank you. Maria, she is our volunteer translator today, and she'll be reading the artist statement for Maxima Valerio.
Okay. Can someone scroll up because I can't read the bio from here since I'm on the call? Just give me 1 second. Thank you. It's just the Wi-Fi where I am. Okay. This was my first photography class ever. Even though photography has always been an interest of mine, I love photographing my 3-year-old granddaughter, Najima. I take care of her when her mom has to go to work and daycare is closed. It is a blessing to see a child when they are born and see them grow up. The love of a grandmother is double the one of parent and child. Originally from Honduras, I have lived in the Bronx for 10 years. Besides photographing my family, I have especially enjoyed photographing from my window. It has allowed me a new way of familiarizing myself with my community, and I get to watch the splendor of the world from my home. Although I am not 100% sure on all the functions of the camera, I am learning so much, and I know I am getting better every time I pick it up.
Thank you, Maria, for reading Maxima's statement. And now we move to Mildred Vega. Mildred, if you can please turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
I was a caregiver for my special needs brother, and I am also raising my granddaughter after the passing of her mother, my dear daughter. What I once only shared privately, I now photograph and share with my family, friends, and photo community. My pictures tell the story of how important my Catholic faith is to me, and how every room in my home is testimony to my sentimental values. With the New York Times self-portrait assignment we did earlier this year, I was challenged with having to take photos of myself. I was always my worst critic with selfies, especially because of my aging. I was so afraid of even looking in the mirror, looking horrible. But after looking at my self-portraits, now I say, oh my God, I didn't appreciate what I had. I took a risk and was so pleased. Inside, I feel happy. I look at pictures now and think, is that me? Through photography, I've become aware of the beauty around us and how important it is to take advantage of how differently we see now. I am an artist and I believe it now. The more older adults in their own artistry believe, the more everyone will take all of us seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mildred. Thank you very much. I would like to ask all Mitchell students to please turn on their cameras now. If all Mitchell students could please turn on their cameras. Thank you so much. Turn on your cameras. Thank you so much. And I would like the audience to please unmute yourselves and celebrate the work of these students by giving them a big round of applause.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. I will now introduce Jess Kirkham. She is the teaching artist for Kips Bay Castle Hill Senior Center.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. We are super excited. Beautiful work, Mitchell Senior Center students. I'm blown away by your artistry and your intimacy that you've shown us today. Okay, I'm just gonna read some information on our class. When I first got off, oh, I think someone needs to mute themselves. Great, thank you. When I first got off the BX5 bus in the Castle Hill neighborhood in 2019, I noticed how unique and open-spaced, blooming and breezy the neighborhood was. Planes flying low and roaring by every 10 minutes as they left LaGuardia Airport. I walked into the entrance of Kips Bay Castle Hill Senior Center and was inspired by the mural painted on the entrance wall. It was inviting and comforting. I had pretty intense first-time teacher nerves as I walked through the halls to the photography classroom. Luckily, I was blessed with the kindest and most patient students a teacher could hope for. I never would have anticipated the deep connection with photography and the connections to each other we would build together these past 2 years. In 2019, the class focused on learning composition and photography techniques. The students documented their loved ones, communities, created still lives, and photographed activities at the Senior Center. We celebrated with an outdoor exhibition that engaged community members as they walked up the ramp to the entrance of the center. For the students, photography opened up new ways of communicating with and seeing the world around them. We had no idea what was in store for us in our spring semester of 2020. After 2 weeks of conducting classes and worrying about our safety in the midst of COVID-19, the senior centers closed their doors. We did not know if we were going to be able to continue the classes. Many of the students did not have the technological support needed to attend classes virtually. Through hard work and flexibility, the BSPL staff, Raina, Gisela, and I figured it out. The students learned photography with lessons sent via text or email, and we had 15-minute one-on-one phone calls to check in each week. They worked on projects about their personal experience living through the COVID-19 pandemic. The students documented the isolation and daily tasks that kept them busy, the loss of family members and friends, and a student, caregiving for their children and grandchildren, and moments of peace amidst the storm. For the students, photographing their experience throughout the pandemic helps them cope and heal. Thanks to their photography, we are now enriched with an understanding of how this historic year was traversed through the lives of our seniors. Even though we are still in the midst of a pandemic, classes in 2021 felt lighter and more uplifting. The BSPL students took on a new challenge, learning how to use Zoom and their new Fuji XF10 cameras. These cameras allowed the students to learn the technical skills of photography that they weren't able to do with their previous cameras. They learned shutter speed, aperture, and use their cameras manually in an all virtual class. In the last weeks of classes, the students applied these skills to their final projects that you will see tonight. The students had the opportunity to submit their photographs to the New York Times and were published online and in the Sunday paper. Towards the end of the semester, we met twice in person for a photo walk in Pugsley Creek Park and a portrait class where we spent time photographing each other and laughing together. It felt so amazing to be with all of you again. Through these past 2 years, I have watched your photographic styles develop, your sensitivity to your subjects grow, and your connection with your community and our class strengthen. I am so proud of all of you. Thank you for letting me into your lives and showing me how you see the world. Thank you for giving me the confidence to teach and supporting me throughout these past 2 years. The beauty that you captured with your cameras is yours, your artistry and life, and could not be photographed by anyone else. I'm so thankful that you're all in my life and that you made it through this year healthy and safe. Let's celebrate. That is it. Cool. And so now we will begin our presentations, starting with Virginia Alicea. Virginia, if you could start your video and unmute yourself.
I did. Okay. My project is called Life After the COVID-19 Vaccine. The COVID-19 virus changed my life on March 13, 2020, when President Trump declared the coronavirus a national emergency. Trump left the decision of lockdown to each state. 32 out of 50 states decided to lock down, with New York being the worst affected. Following that announcement, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio ordered all senior centers to close until further notice. Life for me became notations in my daily calendar of stayed home. Once a week or every other week, the notation would be walk to the post office or went to the supermarket. The worst notations I made emotionally were of those seniors who I knew well had died from COVID-19. Clinical trials started in May 2020, and in early December 2020, 2 vaccines were recommended by the FDA advisory panel for public distribution. I was so elated because now it was a matter of waiting for my turn to be vaccinated and hopefully discard the several masks I had bought. In January 2021, I received my first dose of the Pfizer vaccine and the second in February. After the 2 weeks wait for vaccine efficacy, I felt I could now shed the mask and think of places to visit. However, the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, still requested all vaccinated people to keep the mask on and maintain 6 feet of social distance. When people in the Bronx were beginning to get fully vaccinated, I started to see many places of activity open. As the days were getting warmer, I would take my camera on walks and photograph school buses parked in front of the school, waiting to pick up the in-person students, or people buying luggage for some kind of travel, or meeting with friends who were also vaccinated. I am a die-hard Mets fan, but I live near Yankee Stadium. Walking towards the Bronx Terminal Market Mall, I would pass the Yankee Sports Bar and restaurants full of the people allowed to attend the stadium if vaccinated or tested for the virus. I enjoy watching the Oscar Awards every year. In 2021, the Oscars were virtual with nominees, presenters, and guests at the Union Station, Los Angeles, California. Last of the great train stations and more than a transportation hub. Performances were also virtual from the Dolby Theater in Hollywood, where it has been the venue for the Oscars. For me, the pandemic did not take away from the thrill of watching my selected nominees win. Being vaccinated continues to give me hope and a new beginning in life. A highlight to that beginning was when I finally donated blood without fear. It was a good feeling to begin giving the blood desperately needed. My biggest excitement after the past 1.5 years was when the photography class met at the Pugsley Creek Park in the Bronx for an in-person class instead of seeing each other virtually on Zoom. As we walked together for the first time in over a year while photographing the landscape and nature of the creek, we talked about our personal lives with family and how much we miss physically being in a class together. Despite the pandemic affecting our lives, there were many important moments this year. The New York Times asked the senior and junior photography classes to take self-portraits. How we define self-portrait was up to us. My definition of a self-portrait is an entire human body from head to feet. Through our photography class teacher, we submitted 5 photos with captions, but only 1 photo would be selected from each class. The selection would appear on Sunday, June 13, 2021, in the Arts and Leisure section. What a surprise when 3 photos of the senior class were selected and one was mine. What a blessing when on May 13, 2021, ABC7 announced breaking news from the CDC. Quote, fully vaccinated people do not need to wear masks indoors or outdoors. However, inside buses, airplanes, hospitals, jails, and shelters still requested to wear a mask, end quote. It will take a bit more time to discard masks completely and not stay 6 feet from each other, but I'm willing to wait. Thank you.
Great job, Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Esther Anaya. Esther, will you, Virginia, will you turn off your camera? Great. And then Esther, will you turn on your camera and unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi.
Got me? Hold on. Okay.
I don't see you yet.
Okay. I'm gonna turn my phone on because, like, you know, I had a lot of problems. Okay, my name is Esther Anaya, and my presentation is on parks in the Bronx that I love visiting. Okay, my project is focused on parks in the Bronx that I love visiting. My favorite is the largest park in the city, Pelham Bay Park. It is 3 times the size of Central Park in Manhattan and offers plenty of wonderful things for people to see and do. I was raised in the Bronx and visit Pelham Bay Park very often. Former Parks Commissioner Robert Moses transformed the woodland area into a functioning park and recreational facility, complete with playgrounds, a golf course, and a racetrack. But it has long history, dating back to before the Revolutionary War. He was a master builder. If you like venturing out, this is the perfect place to do so. It is a gem, with all sorts of sports activities, music, children's parks, dog parks, bicycling, hiking, beautiful landscapes, statues, wildlife, and much more. If you want to leisure, visit Orchard Beach, often called the Bronx Riviera or Hood Beach, which is also part of Pelham Bay Park. Play dominoes, dance to some salsa music, sunbathe, picnic, and the list goes on. It is the only public beach in the Bronx, also opened by Parks Commissioner Robert Moses in the 1930s. It was so grand that it was called the Riviera of New York. That name didn't stick because New York City has other Rivieras, like Coney Island in Brooklyn. Orchard Beach is an escape from New Yorkers to enjoy a swim and a day out at the beach with plentiful to do. Bronx Park East has memories of way back when my parents were alive. so the family still picnics there often. It is a public park along the Bronx River. There are handball courts, a children's park with sprinklers, football, baseball, and basketball courts, as well as picnicking areas with plenty of things to do and enjoy. Much of the Bronx is taken up by the Bronx Zoo and New York Botanical Garden, both of which are privately owned. According to New York City Parks, Bronx Park is 18 acres, making garden, both of which are privately owned. I'm sorry. I got lost here.
That's okay. You're doing great, Esther.
Much of Bronx Park is taken up by the Bronx Zoo and New York Botanical Garden, both of which are privately owned. According to New York City's parks, Bronx Park is 718 acres, making it the third largest park in the Bronx and the eighth largest park in New York City. Bronx Park, like the surrounding borough and the river that runs through it, is named for the 17th century Swedish sea captain who settled the area, Jonas Bronck. He was an immigrant who settled from Dutch colony. During my younger years, I spent most of my summers at Cortona Park, where I was active in paddleball, handball, and softball. There would be music to dance to and various activities for all to enjoy. I especially loved swimming in their huge modern over-the-top pool, which accommodated over 4,200 bathers. Cortona Park was my home away from home during summer days when I wasn't sunbathing on the rooftop or cooling off in the street's fire hydrant or playing stickball, hide and seek, handball against a building wall, jumping Chinese rope, double dutch, hopscotch, Johnny on the pony, just to name a few. Back in the day, there wasn't as many parks and greenery as now. Named after the Greek colony of Croton, well known for its Olympic athletes, Cortona Park has served the Bronx community regularly since purchased by the city in 1888. Among experts of nature, the park is widely known for its diversity of trees, species, and beautiful lake, which serves as home to turtles, ducks, and fish. We need our parks for people who like to communicate and interact with each other and meet other people. We also need our parks for the environment and recreation, amongst many other reasons. I walk the parks and trails taking photographs for my photography class, which brought me peace of mind and breathing space. It kept me going throughout the struggle caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. I've been inspired by this project because I love photography as well as the outdoors. My first camera was a Polaroid, the Yashica in the 70s, Canon in the 80s, and many others thereafter. To this day, I am often asked to take out pictures when our family and friends come over. There is a story and memory for every picture. This project is personal to me because I love the Bronx, street photography, people, animals, nature, and the beautiful landscapes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esther. Beautiful job.
Thank you.
If you could mute yourself now. Next, we have Margaret Floyd. Margaret, if you could turn on your camera and unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Good evening, everyone. My name is Margaret Floyd, and I'm 70 years old. My project is entitled Mother Nature at Work and the Garden in My Yard. The poet in me started my artist statement with a poem. My garden was bare and brown. The world was shut down. There were no flowers growing. People were not outgoing. The warm weather is here already. Is the vaccine the remedy? Will my garden be rejuvenated? Will everyone get vaccinated? I need to remove the garden's debris. Everyone must still be apart socially. Is that a leaf I see on my neighbor's tree? We can soon gather again, hopefully. I stayed in my home throughout the pandemic. To keep busy, I downloaded apps to teach myself how to play the piano and to speak Spanish. I logged into classes and seminars offered online. I even bought a headset and spent time in virtual reality. Every Thursday, I joined my fellow seniors for our weekly photography class. While looking out the window one cloudy and overcast day, I wondered when or if the world we knew before the shutdown would ever return. Then I realized that the weather personified the world and that no matter how gloomy the situation or the day is, tomorrow will come and the sun will eventually shine through. These thoughts inspired me to consider the yard in front of my house. My photography project focuses on Mother Nature at work. More specifically, I'm photographing the 8x4 small garden in my front yard. The photographs show the transformation of a yard filled with debris, a dying bush, and dry leaves into a lush garden of roses, irises, and beautiful greenery. In addition, I photographed a small bromeliad plant located at the foot of my front stoop and a tree outside of my neighbor's house to show them emerging from complete bareness to green leafy foliage. As exemplified in my poem at the beginning of this statement, I chose to do this project because the yard seemed to emulate the environment and devastation of the COVID-19 pandemic. The yard was isolated and deserted. As the environment became more sustainable, I wanted to show the yard's regrowth. Tending to what was needed to transform a plain yard into a beautiful garden not only gave me something to do outside of my home, but also gave me a sense of excitement and anticipation of that first bloom. Each day, my grandsons and I would look at the yard in search of a bud. Once the greenery began to grow, we knew the flowers would soon follow. The photographs show what the yard looked like in March 2021, before Mother Nature, with a little help from me and my grandsons, stepped in to revive it. I added photographs of my neighbor's tree throughout the project because the tree relied solely on Mother Nature to go from bare branches to a full leaf-filled crown. Included in the project are photographs of my grandsons working in the garden and some self-portraits. The plants are annuals, so there was no need to plant new seeds. Annual plants are plants that return each year and complete their life cycle within one growing season. Some days the leaves would bend under the downpour of a heavy rain. On other days, the leaves seemed to wither from the force of the sunlight. Nevertheless, the garden flourished. My yard contains a green bush, irises, and a rose bush. The bromeliad plant is no longer brown, but a vibrant green, and the neighbor's tree is lush. Although the irises and roses will last only a few weeks, the leaves from the plants, as well as the bush, will remain green and full until the cold weather returns. Much like the weather affects the garden, restrictions and COVID-19 concerns will continue to affect how we proceed and interact. But just like my garden, we will continue to emerge and grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. That was beautiful. Next, we have Deborah Ledette. Deborah, if you could unmute yourself and start your video. We're pulling up your work now. Deborah, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Hello. All right, it's all you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Ledette, and I'm doing my photos from Soundview Park in the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx. I live in the Bronx. My mother, daughter, and her family also live in the Bronx. All my other family live in various states. My hobbies are jogging and Zumba. I have a newfound love for photography as of 2019. During this pandemic, photography has kept my mind off all the chaos in the world. Soundview Park is where I am 6 days out of the week. During this pandemic, the park was empty, silence, which was something I've never experienced. This is why I chose to take photographs of Soundview Park 2021. People are on the track again. I've gone back to the track, still nervous, but I lace up my sneakers and walk with the Lord. I'm so happy to see people again. Amen.
Beautiful, Deborah. Thank you so much for sharing. Next,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Carmen Rodriguez. She is not here, so I will be reading her statement. Protect each other, protect the environment. Through this global pandemic, wearing a mask was and still is a life-saving responsibility for each one of us. During this time, our emotions were challenged, whether we should wear a mask or not. People's tempers flared when confronted if they were not wearing a mask, and often the results ended in violence. As I walked the streets among masked people, I really miss seeing a friendly smile, but a nod of the head made me happy. Soon the mask became a fashion statement. Different designs and colored masks could be seen everywhere on people's and children's faces. My concern now is what will happen to our environment, the oceans, parks, beaches, rivers, and streets when the pandemic is over and the masks become waste. Beautiful work, Carmen. Thank you. Wish you were here. Next, we have Hortensia Santana. Penny, if you could unmute yourself and start your video.
Done.
Beautiful. Gorgeous. All right, we're ready. We're ready to go. Jessica, Jessica's here too.
Good evening, everyone. The title to my artist statement is Mother Nature and My Hands at Work. COVID-19 took a toll on our life. My life outdoors became a life indoors, and everything got turned around. Our walks were limited to early morning. Jessica's programs were canceled. Senior centers closed, and all social activities stopped. We simply had to enjoy each other's company. I have an adult daughter with disabilities, making it more difficult to go outside. My daughter Jessica could not understand why everything closed down and why we had to stay away from family and friends. Due to her not understanding, it made explaining so difficult that we had to refrain from leaving the house unless it was for appointments or food shopping. Adapting to the pandemic has been a truly hard lesson for her to learn. As a mother of a disabled adult, a four-legged son, and potted children, my plants, I decided to document my love and dedication to them and show what my life is all about. Jessica and I have always been close, but since the pandemic, she often keeps far from me. Spending time with her peers at program and going away from home meant a lot to her, but one-on-one time with me, she wasn't having it. We finally learned to work together in my indoor garden, cooking, baking, cleaning the house, coloring, painting, dancing, and exercising. My indoor garden and I became very close during the pandemic. I love caring for it and often wish it were an outdoor garden. I always talk to my plants, but now I catch myself singing to them. I make sure they get misted and watered every morning, that they are in the proper spot for sunlight. The way they adorn my living space has helped staying home bearable. Mother Nature inspires me to view my actual surroundings. I nourish my family as I nourish my plants, as water nourishes the earth. The love of my family, indoor garden, and my pet made my view of Mother Earth very rewarding. Life itself is so beautiful that there is nothing in nature that cannot be admired. Living things are what I consider true art, life. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. That was beautiful. Please turn off your video and mute yourself. Next, we have Joyce Slaughter. Joyce, will you turn on your camera, please, and unmute yourself?
Okay. I have my camera off.
Oh, I see you now. It's on now. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
My project this year is called The Healing Election. This year, my project focused on the 2020 presidential election. I have never followed the election before, as I did this year. After the 2016 presidential election, Trump won by electoral votes, not the popular vote. It was a wake-up call for me, and I needed to be more involved and educated on the election process of our country. I did not know election terms such as electoral college, GOP, filibuster, electric action prior to the 2020 election year. I made it a point to learn and research these systems and understand how my vote could make a difference. Each election year is different, but this one was very important to us. It was to remove Trump from the White House. He was never for our nation, only for himself. The past 4 years, he sympathized and rallied with hate groups in the open with his blessings. When the virus hit our nation, Trump played it down, while the death count hit 400,000 on the last day of his presidency. He left us to care for each other. We did it. After campaigning all throughout your presidency, being impeached twice, and an insurrection that tried to stop the count of the electoral college vote, Trump, you are out. You are fired. Biden and Harris can now start the healing of our nation. When the virus started rolling out in the Bronx, it was the start of a better future. I was the first in my family to be vaccinated. The other family members followed. Now we are ready to get back to traveling and cruising. I have cruised 368 days on 38 ships since 2003, but in 2020, it came to a stop because of the shutdown. Now I have to remember my past trips by reviewing cruise pictures and craft market collections. I would rather be cruising than home watching TV, but I'm packed and ready when the cruising is over again. Each day is a blessing. Slow down and smell the roses. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Such powerful words. Last, we have Vivian Hernandez Valentin. Joyce, if you could turn off your camera and mute yourself. Vivian, if you could unmute yourself and turn on your camera. Thank you.
Yes, me. Hi, good evening. My project was on hands, and it was an interesting task. Hands have the power. Hands have the power of the human touch. They are an important part of our body. Hands offer warmth, tenderness, love, playfulness, communication, and reassurance. I decided to photograph hands because I observed on TV many of our healthcare providers holding the hands of COVID patients. They helped with the isolation while patients were alone in the hospital. Healthcare providers offered warmth, companionship, and would hold a patient's hand as they died and passed away during this horrific world pandemic. We maintained a 6-foot distance, social distance from other people, and were not touching or embracing others for safety reasons. Schools, churches, community centers, senior centers, and programs were closed. Many employees worked virtually from home. We were washing our hands as per the CDC recommendation. Aside from wearing mandated masks everywhere, we went out. We went everywhere we went. We had our temperature taken, where we were requested to clean our hands before entering buildings such as medical clinics, restaurants, stores, And we all became accustomed to having hand sanitizers with us at all times. Photographing hands demonstrates a critical part of our everyday lives. We touch, embrace, demonstrate tenderness, reassurance, and anger, build with our hands, nourish ourselves as we eat, and most importantly, we communicate with our hands. We show love, dedication, and community building, playing games, as well as use our hands with musical instruments and bring joy with the touch. Many of the photographs I took were detail shots, still life, portraits, and landscapes. I explored the art of photographing hands with a mother holding a baby, men playing games, and celebration as we toasted to good health. My photographs offered the opportunity to share the physical warmth and community building as displayed with men and women's hands interacting with each other. We are now able to go to community spaces and hold a different perspective on life. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Beautiful job. Now I'd like to just invite all the Castle Hill students to turn on your cameras and unmute yourselves, and the audience to turn on their cameras or to unmute themselves and applause. Yes.
Great. Congrats, everyone.
Bravo.
Hey, ladies. Awesome job, Jessica.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Thank
Number
you.
one.
Thank
Number
you.
one, Jesse.
Okay, ladies, I'm going to continue my celebration.
Okay, bye, Vivian.
Bye.
I'm having a glass of wine, never mind that.
And we're not
Jessica,
invited?
you are wonderful. You are
All right,
outrageous.
everybody. We got to mute ourselves now. Raina's going to speak.
Okay.
After we finish just a few things, then we'll be able to talk with each other again. But that's beautiful to be able to connect the two centers virtually this way. That's magnificent. I first want to say to Jess, magnificent work. To all of the students at Castle Hill, incredible work. Congratulations on your projects. So thought-provoking and beautiful. Thank you so much. I would like for John, if possible, could you screen share the New York Times article, John? Thank you so much. So I just want to say to the audience, if you don't know, now you know. The Bronx Senior Photo League was featured in the New York Times a few weeks ago, virtually in the New York Times, but also on in print, which is a big deal. This is an incredible feat for our group as a whole, and you can find this article on the New York Times. Thank you so much, John. And then also, you can find us, the Bronx Senior Photo League is also on Instagram. You can find us at Bronx Senior Photo League on Instagram. Please follow us. We have amazing work, and you can follow what we do and what we're going to continue to do. And lastly, our website again, where this beautiful work that we saw today be shared, which is BronxSeniorPhotoLeague.org. That's BronxSeniorPhotoLeague.org. You can find all the work that we looked at today. So please take some time and look at the work longer. Thank you so much. You can stop screen sharing. Thank you so much. So I want to say first, Nifa, could you mute yourself because we can hear you?
Okay, yes, I'm here.
Could you mute your microphone? Thank you so much. I want to say to everyone, first of all, I want to give a big thank you to our amazing volunteers who helped put this exhibition together. So thank you so much. Also, I want to thank John Santiago for all of his technical support and assistance. Thank you so much. And lastly, I just want to close by saying, after seeing such wonderful work by these students, it is obvious how artistic older adults can be, given the right support. We encourage you, the audience, to connect with the older people in your life and encourage them to explore the artistic side in them. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Let's finish off by unmuting and just giving everyone a big round of applause again. So thank you.
Thank you, teacher. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Good job, everyone. Good job.
Great job.
Thank you,
Thank
Mitchell. Thank you, Mitchell.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Hope we
Thank you,
start
everybody.
soon again.
That's right. So now we are finished. We're, our students, if you want to stay on, please, until John turns off. I think he's going to stop recording and until he kicks us off and ends the call. But thank you so much.